Yes, as you can probably hear by the ambient noise, we are back in our second home for Horns Up. It's a place that begins with an S and ends with an S and has Starbuck in the middle.
Starbuck.
How are you, Peter? How have you been?
Oh, good, man. It's been a hectic week, but yeah, glad to be doing this again.
Yeah. Speaking of which, last episode 18, pretty good reaction. This is the first time I actually felt that, oh my god, we managed to get somebody listening to us.
Oh yeah, I'm very glad to hear just the debate, and I think now it's going to slowly build as we do more of these episodes.
You're expecting too much. It's just two fans talking about heavy metal music.
Yeah, but come on, Alice in Chains being metal, the kind of reaction we got to that, and doing it with baby metal. Also, a lot of people think baby metal is.
You know what? I think all of that happened because we recorded with the Demon Stealer.
Possible.
It has to be his marketing magic. It has to be his. He told us that he's gonna get us 30 listens. Those 30 listens made a lot of difference.
We. To use the marketing term, if I may, we have an engaged audience.
Oh my god. All right. But before we get on any further, there was something that caught my eye. I flagged it off on Twitter too, and it's related to metal or not in one way. On Apple Music, okay, this is Apple Music. I only use Apple Music as my music service as such nowadays, right? I'm not on Spotify. I use YouTube, but I don't use it for new music as much as I prefer Apple Music. So while browsing through what Apple Music thinks I might like, there's this thing called grunge, right? Awesome, grunge, awesome. The first album I see there's Alice in Chains, which is absolutely alright, right? We've discussed it. The next album I see there's fucking Metallica with Load. Do we need to put Metallica in metal or not?
I don't know, man, because it's very clear just from the guests that we've interviewed in the past, from our personal experiences, there's a large, overwhelming evidence that Metallica is one of the most seminal metal bands.
They have fucking metal in their name.
I mean, yeah, I can't believe I've been talking about it.
I mean, do you think Load is not metal? I know it's a softer release, but is it grunge? Our Apple Music slowly telling us.
But here's the thing, and I have 2 points to add to this. A lot of these services right now, what they're using are algorithms. So if we may give some leeway, it could have been an algorithm seeing that the tempo of the music, the ratio of the growls to the power chords, I don't know whatever their criteria is for metal on Apple Music, but it could have got flagged off for that. Or there's a metalhead
who's just screwing with Apple Music, right?
Who's one of those editors or something there who has the final say, and he's like doing exactly what we talked, but he's like, this is not metal, this is grunge. And now
Load wasn't metal enough. Metallica peaked and ended with Black Album. Or no, with And Justice for All.
Well, I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation.
Shit, we should do a Metallica episode soon.
Definitely.
Right? There's just so much over there that's just boiling inside me that I need to talk about, about.
And this is something I think, whether you were a metalhead, are a metalhead, or will be a metalhead, there's someone always who's going to have an opinion on a band like Metallica.
Yeah. I've actually never met anybody who was a metalhead. It is one of the very few genres where, once you try it, once you taste it, and if you like it, you end up eating it your whole life.
Unfortunately, I have met a few who put it as a phase in their life. But
they must only be listening to fucking new metal.
Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park.
See, point established. Anyways, it's time on Horns Up to get things heavy again.
Oh boy, this is meat and potatoes metal.
Meat and potatoes metal. Meat and potatoes death metal. Meat and potatoes slam metal.
Yeah, I mean, so it's strange with this band that we're going to introduce, or you're going to hear a lot more about them. When I first heard of them, it was categorized as slam to me. And the thing is, for people who know about it, slam is not like the most polished or the most, how do I say, accessible music in a way.
I mean, it's pretty much talk death metal. Only thing
Yeah.
is slightly more chugga chugga rather than
And
tak
bree,
tak
bree.
brr, tak.
And bree, bree, bree. It's like they took few sections of Suffocation and just made it an entire album. But, you know, then once, and especially if you look into the discography of the album, and we spoke to the band themselves about it, the initial stuff is pretty much your standard stereotypical metal. Like if you put it by the categories we went for, metal or not, it would definitely tick all four boxes.
Of course, yeah. It's
Yeah.
out and out metal. Yeah.
For me, when I got the press release for their latest album, Mob Justice.
Wait 1 second. We first, I think, should introduce what band we're talking about, because nobody apart from the two of us at the moment knows which band we're talking about.
All right,
Okay,
all right.
well, who are we talking about?
So we're talking about the brutal death metal band from South Africa, Vulvodynia.
Vulvodynia, however you want to pronounce it.
So,
It's a brilliant band name.
Yeah.
Something only like people who have a lot of time on their hands and medical books accessible to them will be able to figure out.
people who worship at the altar of Carcass, man. I mean, that's exactly how Carcass
yeah,
got
yeah,
all their
yeah, definitely.
band
Yeah.
names.
Yeah. All right.
So-
So Vulvodynia, shit. I still don't know how to pronounce it, but whatever. Brutal death metal band from South Africa,
Yeah.
and they've got a release this
Coming.
year, which is Mob Justice.
It'll
I
be
think
out
it'll be
the
out
time.
this week or something. Yeah. So what's cool about it is the fact that this time around, they are taking a break from the usual death metal fare in terms of lyrics.
Yeah, when I got their press release, actually, and that's the thing, because there's so many bands in just so little time. While I was going to their press release, one of the things that kind of stood out for me, and I saw it in like 48 font in front of me, literally, was it saying that these are issues that are being faced in South Africa. But for somebody who lives in India like us or other parts of the world, once you're listening to that music or going through the themes, you can probably relate it to the region you're living in.
Absolutely, and that's one of the very powerful things about music. It allows you to vent out frustrations which you might not be able to do in your day-to-day life while you're just, another average Joe. But somehow this music gives you the power to be able to do that.
And I think this is also a recurring theme with a lot of artists. we
Yeah, a
speak
lot
to.
of the people whom you've spoken to on the show already,
Yeah,
that's what they end up writing about.
yeah. And music is, for them as musicians or people, it's kind of inspired them or got them a way to channel their anger, frustration in a more positive way of sorts.
Yeah.
And for me, this album is a great example of that. Mob Justice, for a lot of people, South Africa, I mean, growing up in India, we always knew about South Africa as a place where cricket and things
so
like
it was
that.
cricket and safaris.
Yeah,
That's about it. And you would always read about the Cape of Good Hope
yeah.
in geography.
Or what was it? Sun City, where they had all the pageants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think someone correct me on
Okay,
this.
cool. All right. So we're talking to their founder vocalist, Duncan.
Yeah, it was a great conversation with him. One thing I must add, and this happened just in time before we're recording this, Vulvodynia later this year in August touring Australia. So these guys are really doing a lot, and they're really spreading the word of metal. I mean, think about, I don't know how many South African bands before have kind of toured around the world as much as them. And they talk, and Duncan talks a lot about their touring experiences across Europe and stuff like that. So I don't want to give too much away.
All right. So that's a good enough introduction for whoever hasn't yet heard of Vulvodynia. We mentioned that name quite a lot. Anyways, let's get to know them a little bit more. Here is Duncan the frontman for South African band Vulvodynia. Hi, Duncan. Welcome to Horns Up. Thanks for joining us, giving us a little bit of your time. So I hear you just got back from a UK tour with Fit for an Autopsy and also Venom Prison. How were the shows?
Yeah, man, it was really a dream come true. It was really awesome. Like all of the shows were really packed. We didn't have one show where we were like, damn, like that's not a good turnout. Like, I think Fit for an Autopsy's built a really good fan base for themselves that side, as well as pretty much all of the bands that were on the bill. So all of the shows were really packed, and it was a great tour to be on. Like everybody worked super hard. So there wasn't a day where one person overworked themselves during loading and all of those types of things. So yeah, it was a good tour. It was a great success.
Was this the first time you guys played UK?
We've actually gone over before because this tour actually hit Europe and the UK. It was 12 dates in Europe, and then we hit 5 dates in the UK. But we've gone there before. I think this was actually our fourth time going through there. Our first time was 2017 at a festival called Fall in the Brawl. We played at that festival for the first time. It was like an exclusive thing where they paid for the flights and all of that. And then the second time was on a tour last year with Despised Icon. They actually hit Europe for the first time in a few years, and we were lucky enough to jump on that tour. And we hit a few UK dates on that tour, and then we hit UK again like 2 months after that on our own headliner. So we actually already have built quite a cool fan base that side, and people are pretty loyal to us, which is awesome.
All right. So considering this was your fourth time, were there any firsts for the band on this tour?
For us, this was actually the first tour where we had our own sound guy, and it opened new, which is really awesome. Like on previous tours, we always relied on the in-house sound guy to do all of that stuff for us. And usually, like, you know what I mean? There'll be guys who just don't do things properly, and we'll end up with bad.
It will be quite a mess.
Now, we just had a guy that was really good, and he picked up on the things that we needed, and he just added that into our sets. Like towards the end of the tour, we were sounding super like pro compared to previous tours, which we loved.
So, you've got your new album coming out, Mob Justice, later this month. How's the feeling? Excited? Nervous?
We're actually quite excited on this one because it feels like it's been the longest we've ever sat on an album. Like we had it done maybe 3 months ago. So like we've been sitting on it, just pushing it slowly and releasing song by song. And the excitement is just like on a new level right now. We really want to get that out there and just like show the fans what we've created already. But I think the response is going to be really good. So I can't wait for the end of the month. I'm just like counting the days.
And, before we kind of dig deep into the album, can you just kind of take us back to your childhood and kind of trace your musical journey for us? So, like, what was it like growing up? What kind of music did you grow up with?
Well, yeah, in South Africa, because I feel like the whole internet thing with like streaming music and downloading music and whatnot, like only hit South Africa later on, like towards the end of like maybe the first 10 years of the 2000s. Like I think like in 2008 2009 around there was only when we discovered internet. So up until then it was like whatever the radio or the media on the TV decided to show us. And I feel like South Africa is always like 10 years behind when it comes to what's playing on the radio at the moment. Like we were listening to like 90s songs in like 2005 and things like that. But yeah, it was all like just mainstream stuff. My dad actually listened to quite a lot of classic rock, like AC/DC and Metallica and Megadeth and all that type of stuff. So like I definitely think that got me onto where I am at the moment. But towards the end of like 2008, I discovered like all the music that I listen to today through the internet. So yeah, that was pretty much how I started listening to the heavier stuff. You get to the point where you just want to hear the most brutal thing you can, and you're like, no, this isn't good enough, and you keep going on to the next band, and then you end up with slamming brutal death metal, and you're like, can this get heavier?
I have to ask. Have you ever asked your dad how he got his hands on all those classic records? Was it easy to find music for him?
Apparently, like back in those days, like there were quite a few record stores around, but the music that he got into wasn't, you know what I mean, big on the shelves. You'd really have to dig through the stores and look in the back and like, you know what I mean, check out for those type of things. And it's usually imported. Like you won't find those type of records or CDs this side unless it's been imported by the shop. So I guess we're lucky enough to find a shop owner every now and then that decides to import and you know what I mean, like cater for those type of people that are looking for something different.
What was the first metal album you ever heard?
I'm trying to think now. Uh, like to me, I probably think like okay, when it comes to classic rock, it's probably gonna be like fucking. I'm just trying to think now. With my dad, it was mainly AC/DC.
Uh-huh.
So it was something like Hell's Bells or something like that. But metal album, uh, yes, see. I remember back in the day getting my hands on an obituary album.
Whoa.
But
Okay.
yeah, I can't for the life of me think of the album name at the moment.
Do you
But
remember
I
the
feel
artwork?
like the album that made me think, wow, you can do other things with metal and you can make it sound ridiculously heavy.
Do you remember the artwork? Was it the eye or was it a lot of green blood or green goo?
And one of the eye and the tree.
Ah, okay. That's cause of death, right, Peter?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it.
Yes, I think it
Yeah,
would be that. It would probably be Cause of Death by Obituary.
yeah. That was my first ever metal T-shirt.
Wow.
Like, I remember, yeah, because my sister went to the US on a short trip for work and she ended up coming back with a bunch of CDs. She went there to a record store and asked, like, you know what I mean? Just give me five metal albums that you think would be cool for my brother to have. And she brought that back for me. And, yeah, Obituary was one of them. So, yeah, that it
Lovely.
was that.
Do you remember what aspect of that album or just metal as a sound, what aspect of it really attracted you?
I love the fact that it freaked everybody out. Like nobody else listening to that type of music at that time, and just like nobody else had a way to get their hands on it. So, but like playing that around other people, my friends, my family, it always freaked them out, and I just felt like that was awesome. I
I'm, I'm
wanted that.
assuming I'm assuming that your sister and your father and your family really supported you.
Yeah. At the beginning, they were like, I don't know what this is. This sounds evil because, like, my family does come from like a quite Christian background. And at the beginning, they weren't open to it. Like, they were like, I don't know, I think you should get rid of these albums. But my sister was like the one that was like, you know what I mean? Fuck that. Just listen to whatever the hell you want to listen to. And yeah, I eventually just wanted to hear something heavier and heavier and heavier. And yeah, I just built up a good like music collection with that. So.
So, you know, just kind of shifting gears a little bit, you know,
Yeah, no.
Vulvodynia has been around for 5 years now, and you're one of the founding members. So, got to throw this in your court. Why did Vulvodynia need to exist, and what's the story behind the band coming together?
Well, it was pretty much just like uh, it was started by our guitarist Luke and I. We were actually living in two different towns, like two different provinces in South Africa. Um, and I, at the point, had been in so many bands, but it was just bands where we would get together, write music, and then play live, but never record. Like recording was like an expensive thing to us. We just thought, you know what I mean, you need lots of money and you need this and that to record. So at that point, I was over being in bands where I couldn't get my voice onto some recordings that I could push, you know what I mean? And I just came out of the band that I was in called Acrimonious Anatomization. It was like a local band aside. And then he also came out of another band called Your Cynical Sanity, which was in Durban. And I was in Port Elizabeth, which is where I am now. And then I actually messaged him over Facebook and I was like, dude, we need to do something together. Like, if you can record at home and send me those recordings via email, then I can try and track it here at home. And we were like at the beginning stages of like building our own home studios and stuff like that. So he trusted me enough, weirdly. I was like sending him voice notes with my vocals and stuff, and he recorded a 3-track EP. So he sent me those MP3s, and I ended up recording my vocals over them with like a broken drum mic, like an instrument
Whoa.
microphone.
Okay.
And I was like plugging it directly into the computer with just like an adapter from a big aux jack to a
Uh-huh.
tiny aux,
Uh-huh.
putting it like into the mic jack, and I was recording like that. And yeah, we sent it off. We got it mixed and mastered by this guy named Byron Dunwoody, and he ended up like really liking the response we were getting from everybody from the EP. So he ended up joining the band, and we weren't like we hadn't printed any of the EPs or anything like that, and we got contacted by a company called Vulvodynia, which is from the US, and they were like, "Hey guys, can we print like 100 copies, and we'll send you like 25." So we're like, "Okay, this sounds like a cool deal, you know what I mean? We don't lose anything." So they done that, and by doing that, we ended up getting some copies out to like, you know what I mean, 70 odd people in the US, and they got to listen to it, and they were sending us photos and stuff. So we had like the small fan base to start off with, and from there, because we had the producer in the band now, like we could record through his studio. He taught me like how to pretty much build a proper studio now with proper mics and all of that. And yeah, I ended up tracking the second album, Cognizant Castigation, at my home studio with like a proper mic and all of that. And then they done the instrumentals at his proper studio. And we released that online still as a studio project. And then that's when the show offers started coming in. And we got picked up by another label after that called Vicious Instinct Records.
Uh-huh.
They're from Australia. Yeah, they picked us up for a 2-album run. So we done Cognizant Castigation and Finis Omnium Ignorantium, which is like the blue and the red album. We done those two with them. And yeah, they printed quite a few. They done a lot of merch, so that's when we started printing our own merch, getting that stuff out there, and slowly the band was just growing while we were just at home spamming that, and I mean continuing with our daily lives. And it was only until Psychosadistic Design in 2016 when we decided to become a live band or a touring band. So yeah, we moved on from there.
All right. Okay. Now, you've talked a lot about what you'll have done in the past 5 years, and I was looking it up, and you've released 3 albums, 3 EPs, and a split. So, what's the writing process you guys followed, man?
Because at the beginning we didn't have any touring plans or playing live. Recording was and writing was so easy. Like usually we would just have tons of songs already written on Guitar Pro, and we would just be like, okay, this one, and then pick a song and write it like that. But when it was just Byron and Luke doing the instrumentals, they would split the writing in half. So if there were say now 14 songs on that Blue album, Byron would write 7 and then Luke would write 7, for instance. And then with the split albums, it was songs we had left over that we decided we weren't going to put on the album, but we still wanted to put out there. So we were hitting up other bands. We were okay, then let's do a one song split, and what I mean, it's quite cool promotion for all the bands, and it gives a lot of revenue to all the bands, which is always awesome. So it's a cool way to just get those songs out there that didn't make it onto the albums.
Just coming now towards your album, Mob Justice, one of the things that really stood out for me is that, themes or the lyrical themes are kind of far different. I mean, if you look at the lyrical themes of Psychosadistic Design or the previous release, Finis Omnium Ignotorium, it's a lot more like brutal horror, serial killers, that kind of thing. On this, the best way I can kind of describe it is the way you have, which says the horrors we face in our day-to-day lives in South Africa. So what kind of inspired that or motivated you to shift your lyrical themes or
Like it was a big thing for us. Like the Blue album, we touched on a lot of like political themes, but none of it was really based on South Africa. It was based more on just like political things on like in general, or just like things in a whole. But with this album, we realized that when we were overseas, a lot of people were learning the lyrics and they were like screaming it back at us, and we wanted something that, I don't know, portrayed the way things were back home, and also taught things more about, like, taught people more about Africa, because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions as well, and things that people are taught from the media that clearly aren't the way things really are here. And we want to portray that a lot in the album. And I just feel like we've all gone through so much shit in South Africa that, like, we could definitely write an album about it, and like it's just something we've definitely wanted to touch on. We've all been through heavy things here, like robberies, um, other things that I won't mention, but we just like to, I mean, show people that it is a beautiful place, but there is a dark side. And I feel like it is that way with most countries in the world. And even though it might seem like it's closer to a first world country, especially South Africa, it definitely still is a third world country, and the media tries to hide that. So we just wanted to touch on everything that is Africa, and like the dark side of Africa.
That's interesting you mentioned that, because that's a perfect segue to my next question. The news paints a really weird picture of South Africa. On one side, in India at least, it's all about the picturesque tourism, the safaris, the scenery, even the cricket for that matter. And on the other hand, there's a lot about the unrest, the violence, the safety issues that you talked a little bit about, even the water cuts and how you guys have to really deal with that kind of stuff, right? Um, so the question is, what's it like to be a metal band in South Africa? And does your music, which showcases so much dissent, is there room for it? Does it find backers? Is there room for such kind of an art form to exist?
Yeah, the thing is, like with everything in South Africa, there's so much corruption, and it's definitely a big thing with our politics, and it works its way all the way down to like even the small organizations which are supposed to help artists, like musicians and things like that. And it was actually a big thing here recently where there was companies stealing revenue that was supposed to be going to artists,
Wow.
like yearly revenue and things like that. But when it comes to metal in general, like I feel like the scene is quite looked down upon, and it's very small this side. But that just makes people want to stick together and you know what I mean, stand tall and try and make it a powerful aspect in the world. Yeah, especially in metal. Like I feel like when bands look at a world tour or things like that, they never look at touching Africa at all. So we also just like to show people, you know what I mean, the metal scene is very loving this side, and they do look after bands that come through here, and they do look after each other in the scene, which is an awesome thing. Uh, that's also another thing about this album. We wanted to make sure that it also hits home for our fans this side, because previous albums haven't really gotten that much response as this new album has back home this side. Like when we've played
Uh-huh.
shows out here now, we see a lot more people respecting where we're coming from, and respecting this direction that we're going towards now, which is cool.
Do you see Vulvodynia as a torchbearer of sorts for the scene? And do you like, I don't know, because the sense I'm getting is you guys want the scene to get noticed. You guys want to make the world know that you guys are from South Africa, and that metal exists, and that metal is definitely reached the place, and that you can produce world quality metal. Is that kind
Like,
of like a purpose for the band?
yeah, it definitely is. I feel like, especially since we've been over to Europe quite a few times now, in the UK, and now the US coming up next month. Whenever we're that side, people talk about like, wow, you're the like maybe the first band we've seen from Africa, or like they talk about us as that African band, or you know what I mean. We are representing the continent or the country whenever we are that side. So we'd like to just make sure that we prove ourselves and that we represent a good image for people back home if they're that side and like we're brought up in conversation when it comes about bands from Africa or from South Africa. So it is a big thing for us, and we'd like this album to be the album that definitely carries the torch for South African metal as a whole. And we try as much as possible to help other bands aside and like give them as much info and like knowledge as possible. Like we've told bands, just if you need anything, if you need some knowledge, we're here. Just come and sit down, have a talk with us, and we'll give you all of the knowledge we have to give, like all the info we have of everybody overseas and like everybody that's helped us, we're willing to pass over to bands aside. So it's definitely it's a big thing for us.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that one of your initial tours that you did in the festivals, and for most people who live in India, hearing about a band from South Africa and then again a band playing music like yours, brutal death metal, it was kind of like, really, is there bands like that? So that becomes the curiosity
Yeah, we
about the.
we identify with it because a lot of people, when they hear about, oh my God, you have death metal in India and the bands actually produce decent quality music, they are shocked. So I'm guessing it's still weird how metal brings the world together, but at the same time, it's still shocking for us to know that that it exists.
Exactly. No, I feel like it's gotten in everywhere. Hey, like no matter where you look, there's definitely one person that enjoys heavy music, and it's been a big stigma this side as well. People are like, especially musicians, they'll be like, if you're playing death metal or anything brutal, you're not going to go anywhere as a band, and that's why Vulvodynia has been such a big fuck you to a lot of those type of musicians this side, because we're doing better than a lot of the like rock acts from this side. So when they see us doing so well and touring there, they're like, how the fuck? And we're just proving to them that, like, no matter what genre of music you play, there's millions of people out there that are willing to enjoy it. You just need to get the music to their ears and, like, you know what I mean, get it to them. And that's where social media has become a big tool for us and like a big stepping stone, because we've used social media to get our music to so many people. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know, it must have been so hard back in the day when internet wasn't a thing to get your music out there.
I was just thinking the same thing. In fact, the question I was formulating in my head was, how important has the internet been to Vulvodynia's success?
Yeah, it's been insanely like I owe everything to the internet pretty much. Like when it started out, like when we on maybe our first, let's say like 10,000 Facebook likes, it was pretty much me spamming people. I was just like copy pasting a message to everybody. Hey, check out my band, check out my EP, check out this album, check out this, blah, blah, blah. And half of the people are like, hey, bro, stop spamming me. But half of them will be like, okay, I'll check out your band. And slowly from there, you just snowball, like it gets bigger. But then I slowly learned how to use proper like Facebook marketing and like Google AdWord and all of that type of stuff. And I feel like that's also come a long way with the band, is like learning how to do proper social media marketing. If you can get that down, then you can get your music to anybody's ears. Like no matter what genre you play, what music you're making, if you can get it to those people's news feeds and their computers and their ears, then you sorted. You got instant fans.
I'm guessing after this interview, you and Peter should have a chat because Peter's daytime job, he's a marketing manager.
Yeah, dude, yeah. That's sorted. That's sorted. Like anything you need to do with the
Disruptive
band.
marketing practices thanks to death metal. That would run a conference I would attend.
Yeah, no, it's really like music in general and just playing in this band has taught me so much that I never thought I'd learn. But yeah, I've been able to put it into other aspects of my life as well, because I've got a brand that I've started up, and that's actually my main income. And I use my knowledge of social media marketing now to push like things that I'm selling on my brand. So it's like, you know what I mean? Music just opened so many doors for me that I thought I wouldn't have, especially something like brutal death metal. It's crazy.
Just kind of going into further into our interview, would you say Vulvodynia exists to make a statement or to influence a public opinion in any matter? And either this is your personal opinion or as a band, do you believe that music has the power to influence opinion?
I really think like when we started Vulvodynia, we really wanted it to be like the reason the earlier songs was like so hectic when it comes to the lyrical content is because we wanted it to have that shock value, and
Yeah.
I feel like people are actually listening to the lyrics now when it comes to these brutal genres of music. And when we started writing songs that were more about like a political vibe or aspect, I noticed that it actually amped the crowd up a lot more. So I feel like when a band is big enough, they could definitely sway things like that. But when it comes to the way things are in South Africa, I don't know about a genre like brutal death metal changing anything, but I think metal as a whole can definitely be a driving force when it comes to like positive change and things like that in the world. Like we can spread positivity and things through our lyrics that I don't know other genres couldn't. Like it would seem lame in other genres, but it's just it's we're all open minded. Everybody who listens to metal is down to earth and like we understand the way things are, especially if you're from countries like the ones we're from. Um, I just feel like you understand how metal can actually save a person when they're going through something really bad because of the country they brought up in. And that's where metal becomes another thing. Like it becomes something a person can cling on to. It becomes like a brotherhood or like a driving force in the community.
So, something I have to ask: has anyone come up to the band specifically with a reaction that's similar to, "I cannot believe you named your band that"?
Yeah, we've had that reaction quite a bit actually. We've actually had women who suffer from vulvodynia message our social media quite a bit, like saying
Do
that
they
they're
reach
trying
out to
to.
you for help?
Yeah, no, they're trying to reach out to other people who are suffering from it and all that. They bad, and they're like, "What's going on?" But yeah, we've gotten that so much that we ended up releasing a T-shirt, a limited run that we done last year, and on the back of it was just a logo T-shirt, and on the back it said "My pussy hurts," and
Ouch.
we took 20% of the profit from that run of T-shirts and hoodies, and we donated it to the NVA.org, which is the National Vulvodynia Association. And we donated it to them because they're actually helping sufferers and trying to find towards it.
Okay, cool. Before we get any further, just one quick roundup of Mob Justice. Can we play a track from the album? And if so, which track would you like us to play for our listeners and why?
I think you guys should play Famine, one of our songs called Famine.
And why is that?
It really hits home. It's actually one of the songs that we've recorded a music video for now. Yeah, it's still in the works. It's being edited at the moment. And I don't know, the song really hits home for us, and I feel like it's about poverty, and it's about just how being born in a, like how where you're born decides how you will live your life in the end. Like I feel like a lot of children, a lot of people are born in a place where they're not, you don't choose where you're born, and they end up growing up and they're born into a life you know what I mean, or like just born into poverty pretty much.
All right, so here's queuing up Famine from Mob Justice by Vulvodynia.
Left for dead
And that was Famine from Mob Justice, the latest album from Vulvodynia. We're talking to Duncan, the vocalist. So yeah, Duncan, one of the things I also noticed about while I was going through your discography is that you guys have a lot of guest appearances. And on this album, you've got Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder, Martin Mustock from Gutalax, Alex Taylor from Malevolence. So how do you kind of decide who is the best person to kind of feature on the track?
When we actually started out, I feel like the guest features were a big driving force for the band. Like a lot of people see so many bands releasing albums, and when they see a name of an artist who they already enjoy, they immediately click play because they want to hear, what this feature sounds like. In the beginning, we actually just started getting everybody who we looked up to and who we loved. We emailed as many people as possible, and the people who actually replied were the ones who got on. But now we've gotten to the point where we can actually choose from an array of people and decide who we think would be best. We wanted to get Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder on our previous album, but he was on tour during that time and he sadly said he couldn't do it. So he said, hit me up during the next album. And we got to meet him last year at a festival called Death Feast in Germany. And we met him there and he was like, definitely, I'm keen. Send me the song, let's do this. So we booked him a studio in New York and he ended up going through. We Ubered him there and he recorded the spot for us. So I think that spot has been the biggest thing we've done yet, definitely, guest feature-wise. And I'm really excited to show that one to the world.
Yeah, and I think Trevor's been a huge supporter of the band because he does the column, which I think is not that regular anymore, where he kind of recommends bands that he's listening to on Metal Injection, and I keep checking it out, and I've kept seeing your name in there. So I'm glad you guys managed to get him on this app.
He's like an avid underground music fan. He listens to so many bands. He probably knows like every single band everywhere. And I remember he also mentioned us in a few comments with the Black Dahlia Murder page in the earlier years of the band, and we like freaked out. And he's just a really cool, down to earth guy, and supports all of the underground music, which is really rad. So it's cool to have him on the album, and I think he killed the spot, like he owned it for sure.
Awesome. Now, you guys are also performing at Ramfest. Help me understand this. What's the usual turnout for a concert like this one? And what does a concert like this tell you about the metal scene in South Africa?
Um, from what you'll see on the lineup, like it's quite a mixed lineup. There's maybe 3, 4 metal bands on the whole lineup, including us, and then all of the other bands are like rock bands. There's some EDM artists and all kinds of
Okay.
things on the.
Okay.
The pull on an event like this will actually be quite big, but it's awesome because it actually also turns a lot of new fans into, I mean, a lot of new music listeners into metal fans because there's just tons of kids there that'll come and watch. But events like this usually pull a lot of people when it's an international artist from overseas, because then people will fly up from pretty much everywhere else in South Africa, and all the metalheads will congregate in like one area for a concert. This festival is actually quite well known, and they've been taking like an off year for I think like 3 years now. So this is a big comeback for Randfest, and I'm really amped to see the turnout for it. But it's really cool to see that we're also getting some good recognition and some good offers when it comes to the bigger festivals in South Africa now, because of us going over so much and like actually building up a name for ourselves. So it's cool. It's
All
a
right.
weird bill that fans are saying, like, what the hell is going on with that bill? But like, especially like, we would never play a show with Attila overseas. I just feel like a promoter would never put us on that bill. But to be able to play with them, yeah, I think it'll be really cool because we'll be able to play to new people and just build a bigger fan base here back home.
Yeah, I mean, with a name like Ramfest, it's pretty easy to just confuse it with a metal-only festival.
Yeah, it used to be a metal only festival, but I think that was kind of the reason it bombed out and went bankrupt, was because I think metal only festivals are slowly not making that much cash, especially with the size that they're making that festival. Like it's a really big stage, big venue. It's like next to one of the biggest stadiums here in Pretoria in South
Okay.
Africa. So when they're putting that much money into it, they need to expand to some other genres to pull in enough kids. But there's also another festival called Witchfest, yeah, in South Africa that also went through like quite a bit because they brought down a huge lineup in 2015. But what a lot of these festivals are doing now is they're just bringing down one international act and then getting a ton of local acts, and that seems to be like the better idea, instead of bringing down a ton and then just sitting with a lot of debt afterwards.
Just kind of shifting gears a bit again. You talked a bit about your US tour that's coming up next month. You're playing with Scumfuck and also Cognitive.
Cog-
Now, this is your second tour with Cognitive. What are you looking forward to at these shows?
I'm just really looking forward to finally play to our US fan base, because I feel like now that because we started touring overseas in 2017 already, and ever since then our US fan base has been begging for a tour. And now that we're finally going over there, I feel like the turnouts are going to be really good, and I'm just excited. Like all of the dudes from Cognitive have been a big help for us. That side, Rob, which is the guitarist for Cognitive. He's the one that helped with the booking along with Artery Global. And they're just really good guys that have really helped us out and shown us what we need to do in order to get everything sorted for that side, which is really rad. The only thing is, like, getting visas for us here in South Africa has been such a big thing. We actually had a US tour booked for last year, but we couldn't go through because of visas. We've needed to hire lawyers in the US to do all the paperwork for us, and also create a track record and just everything we need for the US visas. So yeah, that's been quite a big thing for us. But we're super excited for those shows. I feel like it's going to be really packed at every show. We're just sad that it's only the East Coast. But in the end, we're actually happy that it's not too many dates because it's only 14 dates. And we played a month-long tour last year, and it killed us. It was a bit too brutal.
Since you just touched a bit about this, what do you find similar or different in the audiences in the different countries you've performed so far?
I feel like every country has their own type of people. It's crazy. Also their own type of moshing and all kinds of things like that. Like when we were in the UK, for instance, people were just hitting each other, like just crowd killing and like crazy dancing and all kinds of stuff like that. When we're in Germany, there's just like hammer pits where it's like literally a circle pit, but they just walk slowly and they hold their beers and they do that.
I have to look this up, man.
And then, like I've noticed, I don't know, like
the
Italy's just
this peaceful.
every other place, like South Africa, for instance, is just mainly push moshing. Like everybody's against the hardcore dancing thing, but I like all of it. I like every style of moshing. I think it's interesting to watch a crowd when you're on stage, and it's quite entertaining. I don't know, just like I feel like everybody brings their own vibe. Like there's been countries like Poland, for instance, or like I've heard stories about Russia and in Japan as well, where like people will just stand and watch, and like you don't know if they're enjoying the music, but at the end they'll all clap and be like, "Yeah, that was sick." So like, there's places where people will just enjoy standing and watching the music instead of actually going crazy and hitting the shit out of each other. So, but I like every crowd reaction. I feel like no matter what's going on in the crowd, still give your all. And you know what I mean? You don't know who's watching or who's filming, so might as well just give you all every night. And it's that 1 hour a night. So
I hope you guys get booked in India soon so that you can get a taste of what Indian metal heads have to offer.
Like we're actually good friends with these guys over there. They're in a band called Gutslit.
Of course.
And
Of course.
we've heard crazy stories from them. We actually played a show with them at Death Feast in Germany in 2017, and we got to hang out with them and everything. Really cool guys. But yeah, no, the Indian metal scene looks awesome. I've also followed some friends of ours, still both German guys that we toured with on our first Europe tour. They actually went through there with Gutslit, and we just followed them on their social media. And the Indian shows look crazy, man. They look awesome. So
I was actually at the Stillbird show earlier this year when they played, and it was a lot of fun, man. Like these guys seriously put on a great show.
Fun. I really want to play some places like that, man. Really, I feel like it will be a lot closer to home. Playing India, it'd be awesome, man. We want to book a whole Asia tour and come through, start off in India and kick it off from there.
Yeah, so I'm gonna call out Gurdeep on this because he has a lot of experience, and he did that with Stillbirth. Yeah. They did a whole Asia tour together.
I know. I love the guy. He's the best.
You know, we've had a great conversation, Duncan. Thanks a lot for taking time out. Have a great show this weekend, and yeah, man, all the best for the album also.
Thank you guys so much, guys. Like really, it was cool talking to you guys, and thank you for taking your time out just to have a quick chat. It was awesome.
Thank you, man. Horns up.
Horns up.
Horns up.
Wow, that got pretty real at some point over there, right? I mean, it's almost like the Bombay hardcore scene. They're all singing about, or we are all singing about the daily amount of shit that we go through.
And I'm glad you're doing it because someone needs to be shedding light on these issues. And clearly, like, writing about dragons and fire and I don't know what else is not going to shed light.
I've always found that a bit weird, like a band from Bombay, India, talking about frostbitten lands and winter with snow and stuff. No offense. I'm obviously referencing somebody over there, but yeah.
I also kind of wondered. I mean, of course, I've lived in frostbitten places, so I understand. And I don't think I've ever appreciated black metal more than that. But yeah, man, I don't know many bands who've written like summer black metal music. Or
Def
like,
Haven. No. Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyways, let's not get into that debate again because we've had that quite a lot of times already.
But it was a great conversation with Duncan. I loved hearing about, all their touring experiences. Great to hear about their camaraderie with Gutslit. Again,
Yeah.
were flying the flag for India for
Yeah.
metal across the world.
Gutslit, if you're listening, we need to have a chat with you. You seem to be the new torchbearers of Indian metal all around the world.
Yeah, and they're currently on tour in Europe. So
Uh-huh.
they're definitely going to create a lot more fans this time around and play with a lot more bands, telling them that, hey, India is metal. So
Yep, definitely. So, with that, it's a wrap on this episode. Where can people find us, Peter?
So we're Horns Up Pod on Twitter. I'm Trend Crusher on Twitter and most social media platforms.
I'm at Azumani only on Twitter. I don't want to tease next week's guest. We've got somebody really whom we fanboyed over a lot.
I don't think I've been more excited for an interview than I've been for this one. And
Yeah.
getting an email confirmation from him was the highlight of my day.
All right. Anyways, I think we're out of time. Let's focus. Let's not do weird things. Let's not trace in air. Let's not. I mean, after all, we need some rest. We are just carbon-based anatomies. Oops.
We're humanoids?
Yeah. Anyways, don't I know you're very kind, but don't bend to free me and stuff. That's really bad. These are really bad segues. If anybody's got a hint of who we're talking about, yes, you know who it is. If you don't, then listen
Look
to
it
your
up.
fucking metal.
Or look it up. Google.
Anyways, horns up, guys.
Horns up.